Should people fast? Like, a lot of people swear by it. Is that a good idea, or can that cause problems?
Yo, what is up, fam? Thank you so much for tuning into another video. If you are new to my channel, welcome. And if you are a returning viewer, thanks so much for coming back and sticking again to another video. And today we're going to be doing another BS or not. However, it's going to be on a really interesting topic that I actually was looking at earlier. It's going to be a little interview that Greg Doucette, you guys probably have heard of him, and Abby Sharp. She is a registered dietitian. They're both very educated people, individuals. So I thought this would be a really educative and helpful video for you guys to kind of hear what they have to say, specifically the best tips to lose weight. So I feel like this is going to be a good breakdown for me because I can learn something, and I hope you guys can learn something from this video. And we're going to see, is this BS or not? I hope it's not, because they're both very smart, educated people, and we're going to see though. So if you guys are ready, sit back and enjoy this video.
The reason why most people lose weight is because when we skip meals, we're just kind of bad at making up for them calorically. So if continuous caloric restriction works better for you, then that is going to actually work better in general. Now, I will say that if we're comparing like calories in, calories out versus or if we're just like caloric restriction versus intermittent fasting or whatever, when we actually look at the data, we see that some people will stay the same weight and some people will actually gain weight. And that's because it's really easy to cheat the system and gorge yourself or binge during your eating window if you let yourself get too hungry. So I think it's good, or it's a good option when it already naturally aligns with your natural hunger cues, but it's bad when it doesn't. If you're a morning person and you're trying to and you're hungry at 5 a.m. like I am, but you're not eating till 1 p.m., the minute you get to 1 p.m., you're probably gonna binge and eat too much. So that's where it does not work.
Personally, I've tried almost every diet, and I've tried the intermittent fasting, and I've said, oh, I'm gonna skip this meal, save my calories for later, and I'm like, yeah, I can eat like 1,500 calories now because I didn't eat earlier. I eat the meal, and I'm like, okay, good. 20 minutes later, starving just as much as if I hadn't eaten that first meal, eat that meal. 20 minutes later, same thing, and I'm like, I ended up eating 2,000 calories more than I was supposed to, even though I fasted all day and had all these calories saved up. Didn't work in the slightest for me. So for me, horrible idea. Maybe for some other people, it worked for them.
Yeah.
So what they're covering here specifically on the first topic is fasting. If intermittent fasting aligns with your eating cues, as in you naturally perhaps don't eat in the morning because you're not very hungry, then this may work for you because you already naturally are kind of fasting in a way that you don't have to feel like you have to force yourself to not eat, because you naturally just don't eat already because you are not hungry. So I think that's very important, because the biggest thing that Abby Sharp said, at least, is that, that can lead to binging, because if you are someone like her, like she explained that she likes eating 5 in the morning because she's just naturally maybe hungry at that time, and she's probably up and doing her own thing. If you like eating early, maybe you're up at 7, 6 in the morning, 8 in the morning, and you're hungry, intermittent fasting would not be ideal for you, because lead to potential binging because it doesn't align with your eating patterns. Great point so far, no BS. Let's see what they have next.
You talk a lot about fat in your videos being satiating, like fat, the importance of fat being satiating. And personally, I have this opposite approach. I literally believe the exact opposite. So this is one area that we differ. I think that protein is by far the most satiating. And I find that fat to not be satiating at all. And some people will argue and say, yeah, but I ate a lot of fat and I was more satiated. But I'm like, yeah, but the calories in the fat are higher, at over double. So you might be eating, for example, nuts to me are not satiating, because I weighed it out. That was 300 calories. And I was like, I'm not satiated. But when I eat popcorn, it's a big bag of 200 calories. I'm more full on 200 calories of popcorn than 300 calories of nuts. And protein is the most satiating. I don't know why. I just eat protein, and it's like, I don't binge on chicken. I'm not going to sit there and eat 2,000 calories of chicken before bed, but give me some ice cream, I'm 4,000 calories in. Give me a bag of nuts, 2,000 calories. Is that not something you experience? What is the evidence on this?
So you're correct. When I look at what I call the hunger crushing combo, which is protein, fiber, and fat. If we're looking at the hunger crushing combo, protein is king. Protein is king. There's 4 calories in a gram of protein. There's 9 calories in a gram of fat. Protein per gram is gonna be the most satiating. Then it's fiber, then it's fat. But fat is slower digested than, let's say, carbohydrates. So it does also carry a lot of satiety factor as well.
This next topic that you're covering here in this interview is protein versus fat on satiety. Which one is more satiated from the two? Now, these are great points that they both cover as far as protein versus fat. Abby Sharp says that it depending on the hunger, and protein is the highest in satiety, then fiber, and then fat, just like Abby Sharp said. And however, she did also mention that fat, it is the slowest digesting. That's why it can keep you full depending on how much, to an extent, opposed to protein. But that's why it's ideal to combine both protein and fat to have a really nice effect as far as slow digesting, releasing of nutrients with high protein and some complex carbohydrates. So as far as which is more satiated, protein is more satiated, which they all agree. They both agreed on, which good. No BS so far.
I do think protein is so key. And it really depends on the person. It so depends on their activity, what they're doing, what their goals are. But I would say that I personally try to go for about a gram per pound of body weight for myself. That feels best for me. But yes, I agree. Popcorn, love popcorn. It is satisfying because you're also dealing with the volume benefit, right? You get more volume out of something that's higher in fiber and lower in fat compared to, let's say, like a tablespoon of peanut butter. So, there's also the mental satisfaction factor, and there's something satisfying about having a big ass bowl of popcorn versus a tiny little handful of nuts.
And then the next thing that they covered is, should we up the protein? Should we eat more protein in our diets? And what really surprised me is that, a lot of girls are scared of, I'm going to get too big if I eat too much protein, if I lift heavy weights and whatnot, right? But Abby Sharp, obviously, she just mentioned she eats around 1 gram per pound of body weight, which is a lot of protein. If you're 130, 125 pound female, 120 to 130 grams of protein daily, that is a lot of protein, and it can be hard to get in. That's why it is a more satiated, because it's harder to eat larger quantities of protein. Just like Coach Greg says, you're not going to probably overeat on chicken breast because it's just too much. It's just too hard to eat. Whereas you can overeat on peanuts, grab a bunch of handfuls of peanuts, peanut butter, cashews, all that stuff. Are they healthy? Sure, but they're higher calories, or they're calorie dense, so it's not ideal for trying to lose weight, which is the topic of this video.
CICO, calories in, calories out, versus like the whole macro counting. What do you think is the best way to lose or maintain weight? Like personally, I'll just tell you, I don't count macros. I'm just eating. And I don't care if it's a high fat, low fat, high carb, low fat. As long as you're eating enough protein, to me it doesn't matter. Point to the rock. What kind of macros you're eating, as long as your calories are below that threshold for weight loss.
Yeah, not a sexy answer here, but I would say it depends. It depends on what's easier for the person to maintain, first and foremost. It depends on their relationship with food. It depends on their nutrition knowledge. I will say that in both of these scenarios, people have the opportunity to kind of cheat the system, and they kind of like misuse their kind of macro range or their calorie budget. And there's the opportunity to just consume an excessive amount of low nutrient foods just because it fits within this specific kind of equation. And I also think that both of these situations, in some cases, oversimplify weight to just a simple math calculation. And it's not always that simple. So, for example, those like calorie counting or macro counting often requires you to put a lot of trust in an online calculator that tells you how many calories you need in a day. When we know those online calculators do not take into consideration your specific activity that day, your adaptation to that activity, your metabolism, your microbiome, your kind of absorption of nutrients, all of those things. And it also doesn't take into consideration the fact that the food manufacturers whose labels you're using to count your calories are legally allowed to be 20% off on calories. Legally. And most of them, especially small companies, are off by a lot more than that. So I would rather people focus on dietary patterns and having some basic nutrition knowledge so as to learn that, okay, if I fill my half of my plate with vegetables, That's going to keep me a lot more satisfied than like a tiny fried chicken finger. So not one size fits all for everybody. It's really all about what's easy and sustainable for the unique person. But I do think that education should be number one.
But for me personally, I'm not a fan of counting macros, like sitting there and saying, well, it's 61 grams of fat and 40 grams of carbs and it's almost midnight and I better chug olive oil because I need to get my fat grams in today. And it's like, I just rather see calories. And if you're not losing weight, then the calories, they need to get lower. It's as simple as that. So regardless if you're adding your calories right or wrong, if you're not losing weight, you're not in a deficit and you need to eat less of them. So if somebody can at least practice counting calories to an extent over the macro counting, if they're not losing weight, they can be like, well, I think I'm eating 2,000. Maybe I'm wrong, but I'll try eating 1,900 now. And then just by lowering it, eventually they're going to be in a deficit and lose weight.
Next topic that they're covering is one of my favorite ones because it's honestly, everyone has asked me this question, and you probably have heard of this also. Calories versus macros. Do they matter? Which one is better as far as losing weight, building muscle, losing that body fat? They both have different opinions, they both have different answers, but they're both kind of correct. They're just worded a little bit different, but they both can probably agree. And Coach Greg says, I don't count macros. That's BS. All I do is just count my calories because most of the time labels lie. They're off by, X amount of percentage. And the only way to know if you're really, really hitting your macros to the gram or to the ounce is by weighing the actual ingredient itself on a scale so that you know to the T. Is it lying? Is it this as what it states on the label, or is it not? And he just focused on having a high protein diet to make sure that he is still building muscle, getting that protein synthesis effect going in. And then Abby Sharp actually had a very interesting answer. She said that she focuses on nutritional patterns, which I actually have not heard of it because I usually always went by calories versus macros, but she says that she basically focuses on educating people on focusing on kind of like the my plate that you guys have seen. Like, hey, if I filled half my plate with vegetables, maybe the other half with fruit, and then the protein and then the carbs or whatever that meal looks like, you're gonna probably stay full a lot longer because you have a lot of fiber, a lot of macro and micronutrients in that bowl. So it's a complete wholesome meal of just nice nutritional foods, as opposed to calories in, calories out. Like a lot of people say, well, if you're in your calorie deficit, regardless of what you eat, you will lose weight. That is correct. However, your body composition is not going to be the best because you are not getting good whole nutritious foods. If you can lose weight on just Twinkies and Rice Krispies if you're in a calorie deficit, but you're probably gonna look like not great because you're not getting any good amount of complex carbohydrates, no protein, shitty fat and sugar, and really, there's nothing really that's like nutritionally valuable or advantageous to your goals. It's really having a balance of all macronutrients, which is why I always preach about, making sure you get a balance of carbs, fat, and protein. So another great point. No BS so far. Let's see what they talk about next.
What is one thing that you would suggest that people do to lose weight?
Yeah, like it's so hard to just pick one. So I have that video that I know you did a review on of some of my kind of top tips. And there's like
right.
that are sustainable weight loss tips. And, different people.
You got to pick one.
Yeah,
we want the best
one is hard.
One.
I think one as an overarching tip would be to not take on more than what you think you can handle at any given time. So, it's like we talked about, don't take on anything that you can't maintain for the rest of your life. I think that's really important because everyone who goes on a weight loss diet just goes too fast, too quick. And then what's the point? What is the point of losing 10 pounds for your wedding if you're going to gain it back on your honeymoon? I never understood this. I never understood why anybody would want to look a certain way for like one day. What is the point of that? So if there's no point in cutting your calories to 1,200 calories or working out 3 times a day to lose weight if you're just going to go back to your habits 2 weeks later because you can't maintain that 1,000-calorie diet or deficit or whatever. So my biggest tip is to just find the little tweaks that are sustainable to you. It is way better for you to lose a small amount of weight and keep it off than for you to lose a large amount of weight and gain it right back.
What is the best tip for the weight loss? You have to just find something that's sustainable. all right? And this is why I hate the concept of, oh, I'm trying to lose weight quick for my wedding. I'm trying to lose weight quick for this vacation, for this trip. This, whatever that reason is, I have to lose it quick. So I'm gonna go on this crash diet, no carbs, you know, keto diet, you know, 1 meal a day diet, vegan diet, you know, all these fad diets, you know, there's always a rush. There's always a rush, you know, to do this, to lose the weight, to lose the fat. And like she said, I don't know why people, you know, rush to lose those 10 pounds for your wedding when during the honeymoon, you gain the 10 pounds because now it's over, the wedding's over. And then you start eating a lot because you've been restricting yourself for so long because you've been dieting for this wedding. And then you gain the 10 pounds back. So what was the point of that? Absolutely pointless. A waste of time. I'm also guilty for that because I lost a bunch of weight for my show. I started at 195. I got to 172. It's a lot of weight, right? But I had a timeline. And however, that's still, you know, I was very, very aggressive with the diet. Thus, when I was done, I didn't even stop doing cardio. I still continued to do the cardio, but I started gaining the weight very quickly because my body was just, you know, it was just like dying for actually more calories. I was trying, you know, it was telling me, hey, you need to eat normal now because it was in starvation mode. So I gained the weight, right? I got up to like 207, 208, maybe at my peak like 3 months ago. And then I started cutting back slowly. Right now I'm like at 194. You know, you have to find something that's sustainable for you guys. If it doesn't work, if you're like trying to lose weight, right? Trying to lose fat, and you ask yourself, hey, what I am doing right now, could I do it for the rest of my life? As in what I'm eating right now, could I eat this for the rest of my life? If the answer is no, then it's probably not the right thing to do. You're probably doing it wrong. Are you going to be hungry while you're dieting? Yes, it's part of it because you're in a deficit. However, you shouldn't be starving. You shouldn't be hating your meals. You shouldn't be like, oh my God, another chicken, rice, and broccoli meal, another fish and asparagus, another this, another that. Like, you're gonna end up caving in. You're gonna binge. You're gonna go back and gain all the weight that you've been losing. You're gonna, you know, get rid of all your progress and whatnot. So please do yourself a favor. That's it for the video, guys. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I hope you guys found something useful from this video. You know, always appreciate learning from others that are more educated, well-rounded that I am. And yeah, so I'm gonna say no BS on this one. Thanks so much for tuning in, and I'll see you guys next video.